Alright, so I wanted to address two other points that came out of this particular hangout. The first is the sheer hypocrisy of these two clowns, Del and Gav, who sit every week preaching to their cult, constantly programming them with their script over and over and over again, repetition, the same words, the same concepts over and over and over again. And their position is entirely hypocritical, as I've pointed out before. The two of them sit doing this every week, multiple times every week. They've been doing it for a couple of years. They constantly preach about exploration and never go anywhere. They constantly preach about doing science and they do no fucking science. They just sit and flap their gums every week. So these guys are just hypocrites right off the bat. Now, everybody knows what Del is like. He's an over-emotional man-child who rants like a maniac on practically every one of his hangouts. If he doesn't start halfway a rant, he'll start talking about something that pisses him off and he'll start going into a big rant. And if it's no that, he'll have somebody come on and in the middle of supposedly what they refer to as adult discussion, all he does is sit and throw tantrums like a big baby, curse and swear. The only thing he's got to actually defend himself with overall is ad hominem attacks. He's just constantly throwing them out about people all the time. He's a massive drama queen. So if you want to talk about displays of emotion, Del's your guy. If you want to talk about somebody who's manipulating people through the use of emotion, by his own admission, not just the fact that you can see it for yourself, but he admits it himself, he has done so on multiple occasions, that he claims he does this deliberately to get an emotional reaction from his viewers. Remember that, okay? And then think about what they say here.
Totally impossible on a flat earth.
No, it's not. No, it's not impossible. I've just shown you how that happens. Okay, even when you're level and all the things that we're looking at a level, they still appear to drop below that central point.
Right, so bearing in mind who we're dealing with, listen to the complaint here.
Yep. And I mean, again, noticeable is his appeal to emotion and words like totally impossible, like
Yep.
wow, like this can't, you know, as if the way he says things is actually going to lend any, you know, credence to natural phenomena. You know, natural phenomena doesn't give a fuck about his words and his rhetoric or his emotional appeal, right?
You've got to remember he's emotionally appealing to emotionally unhinged and people who operate from emotion.
You see what I mean? Now, it's not just bad enough that we know the people that are saying this are the most guilty of what they've just accused conspiracy cats of doing. But in the same section, while talking about conspiracy cats himself,
It's an argument, but it's sophistry, you baldy prick.
ad hom.
Okay, again, rumbled, you little dishonest creep. Now, the concerning thing about this idiot here is that he professes to be teaching children. Would you really want a lying piece of shit, low-life scumbag like that teaching your children blatant fucking lies and misrepresentations?
And there you go. A direct appeal to emotion, only a much more fucking despicable one coming from Del. A tactic that he has used many, many times, where he tries to make it sound as though there's something really devious and underhanded about anybody who has information that goes against his cult belief. The cult belief that he has zero fucking evidence for. Not only that, Del is one of these people who has on multiple occasions accused people of being paedophiles, which is, as far as I'm concerned, that's when you cross the fucking line. And yet will turn round and appeal to his audience's emotion because somebody was doing the same to him on Facebook and had the fucking gall to turn around and say, oh, I would never do that, that's crossing the line, oh, that's shocking, blah blah blah. The guy is just a two-faced lying bastard. That's what it boils down to. And this is why you get these emotional reactions from them, because when it comes down to it, they've got nothing but their spiel, their script, their emotions. They don't have any tangible real world evidence for all the fucking bullshit they spin about visibles and tangibles. And of course this entire video is a perfect example of them being hypocrites in the first place, because they're relying on visuals to show something that supposedly debunks somebody else, when one of their complaints that they try to use to worm their way out of dealing with it in the first place is to say, oh, you can't use a visual, it has to be tangible. Well, it might be tangible if you got your fat arse up there and did the observation yourself. So, every way you look at it, just pathetic, childish hypocrites projecting their own failures, their own disgusting character onto other people who are far more honest and far more dedicated to going out and demonstrating things in the real world than any of them will ever be. Now let's talk about this fucking muppet for a minute. Gav. You know, it's interesting to me when you look at the overall situation with Flat Earth, that you have these certain characters that everybody knows and they tend to feature in other people's videos. It's naturally going to happen. So you get Jeranism and you get the people like the Morgile and Patricia Steer and then Nathan Oakley, Anthony Liley, blah blah blah. All these people, they tend to, you know, they get pushed to the forefront, and other people making videos, just like I'm doing now, will be making videos about them. But when you actually look at the overall situation, for all the fucking bumping these gums that Dell does, he actually doesn't get that much attention compared to all those other guys. All the other people are the feature of people's videos, hit pieces, whatever it might be, debunks, far, far more often. But the other point to note of that is that this clown has been hanging about Dell's arse for over a year, feeding him Mary the same shite, backing up the nonsense that he says, and this guy basically escapes scrutiny all the time. Out of the two of them, Dell's the front man, and he's the one out of the two of them. If anybody's going to make a video, they'll talk about Dell. If anybody's going to do a parody or a hit piece or anything like that, it'll be aimed at Dell, never at Gav. Gav always gets to slide past. Now, in my opinion, it's time for that shit to stop. People need to start focusing on this lying little scumbag. Because I've said it before, and I'll say it again, this guy claims to have a dual degree in maths and physics. He talks quite regularly, well, he repeats himself over and over again saying the same things. And he introduces these sophist ideas into people's minds by adding them into Dell's script and repeating them himself about visibles and tangibles and all this bullshit. You know, he's an orchestrator, but what does he do? He does nothing. Again, as I've said, all he does is talk. And what does he produce work-wise? Where's his science? You know, this is the direct realist who is only interested in doing things for himself. It's got to be tangible. You like to touch it with your hands, you blah blah. Where's his fucking science? He doesn't have any. Where are his experiments? He doesn't have any. What has he produced in the entire time that he's been doing this, apart from hot fucking air? Nothing. The one thing is the one thing we're going to move on to in a minute. But here we're going to see an example of how he gets away with feeding the minds of the mouth breathers that follow Dell without ever actually having to lift a finger to do anything. Because this is the thing about, for all the guys talk, this is all part of his act, that he'll rhyme off a load of sayings, he'll quote from a bunch of books, he'll try and make himself sound smarter than he is, but ultimately he never produces any work, he never does any working out, he never does any experiments, any demonstrations, he never actually gets involved in any detail in anything. All he does is sit with Dell and slag people off, and then he throws out a few wee quotes to try and make himself sound more intelligent, and the mouth breathers in the chat lap it up. But when it comes to things like, say, debunking an idea, he never produces any real work. You watch somebody like Sly Sparkane, and he will sit and go through Google Earth, build something in 3ds Max or whatever it is, and as part of that process will identify features, do calculations. Same with people like the Rumpus and stuff like that. I mean, there's loads of people do it, but they will employ that skill and they will use that to identify areas, work out the size of something, work out the distance of something, blah, blah, blah. But you take somebody like Gav, who is constantly pushing this fucking tired old rhetoric. He never does any of that work, ever. And we're going to see an example of his sophistry right here. And this is what he gets away with every week. Week in, week out, this is how Gav slides by, because he knows he's dealing with people who, on the whole, don't even understand what he's talking about.
Right, there we go, Gav. I'll let you...
Again, we're showing a side-on view now, and we're going to invoke tangible geometry, although we're talking about visible phenomena.
Yep.
Straight in with the word salad, making himself sound as if he knows what he's talking about, as if there's actually a difference between using a side view to work out the sizes of something to viewing it in perspective. There isn't actually a physical difference in the sizes of things in real life, so whether you're viewing it through a lens or looking at it side on, the relationship between objects doesn't change, but they all are pushing this narrative. He's doing it, Dell's obviously copying him. Obviously this is Huxley and Liley's bag when they complain about orthographic views and trying to claim that the curve calculator should incorporate perspective and all that. It's all, you know, they all say the same shit. They can't get away from it. They have to invoke the same terrible arguments. Anyway, point being, he's straight in there with, you know, some nonsense complaint before he even gets to see what's happening to dissect it. But does he dissect it properly? Let's have a look.
Well, there would just happen to be a big difference between the way we see things visually, right? It's a different geometry that needs to be applied to it, namely those of curved surfaces, as in your retina, as in the curvature of a lens, right?
Yep.
And not tangible geometry or the geometry of construction. So just because you can swap those two round and then play with words does not equate to reality. I'm sorry, Kojak.
Bit of irony there, talking about playing with words and how it doesn't apply to reality. We'll see about that in a minute, Gav.
I don't know how many times we need to repeat this, right?
Yep.
But, well, we'll keep doing it until everybody gets it.
Yeah, you can...
You don't realise it, but you've just watched a cult leader admit to how he programs these little zombie followers.
Keep trying to lie and deceive people all he likes, but honest people are not going to put up with it.
Now, all of the numbers on this picture, we can prove without a shadow of a doubt. So
We can prove without a shadow of a doubt. Hold on, I mean, I'm actually maybe even going to lend credence to the fact that, yes, let's take it for granted that they're honest, right? But I'm not entirely sure of that, because every single experiment they show doesn't do it very professionally, right?
Another piece of irony, considering we've just been looking at Dell's ridiculous attempts at experiments, but we'll move on.
An experiment? Taking a photograph? I wouldn't call that.
That's not observation, yeah. I retract that, yeah.
From Mount Rainier and Mount St Helens, leaving me with the...
See, he's getting all complex here, still deceiving people by using this side view.
Complex.
No accounting for perspective, as I've just shown in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if there's much we need to say about it, Gav. It was just pretty much to show the image.
What did he do, Cad? Does he try and calculate the angles, or...?
Okay, so this is the bit I want to get to. Remember, they're supposed to be looking at this with a specific view to say why it is untrue or incorrect. Now, if anybody else was to do this, i.e. if the situation was reversed, if this was something that Gav had done and then we were doing what they're doing now and looking at it, we would see what information came out, then we would examine that information, and then we would do the work ourselves and figure it all out for ourselves and see whether it matches, and whether it matches reality, blah, blah, blah. Let's see how it gets dealt with here.
I don't know, play it and let's see.
Just flip through it briefly. Just jump ahead.
Now that leaves us with this
think-
time. Yeah. And right now, all I want to work out is the angular size of Mount St. Helens from the top down to the eye level of the observer. And we can calculate that angular size because
On a side perspective view.
Yes.
No.
You see that? They've just... Remember, Gav's meant to be a geometry guy, and he's just turned around and says that you can't calculate the angular size of something in a side view. I think there's quite a lot of people would beg to differ with that.
That doesn't account for your real world view and how you actually see it, straight on.
No,
So
it does not.
What are you talking about, son?
Let's let him go.
Right.
two lengths here. And we also know that the tan of the angle equals the opposite divided by the adjacent. So a little bit of simple trigonometry allows them to figure out this.
Again, this is just another example of maths being used as a deception.
Again, this is just another example of maths going over Dell's head. But this is where Gav should come in and save the day.
Well, he actually doesn't even need to use it. You know, if he was thinking about it, the fact that these are similar triangles is what he's going to build up. You know, the two similar triangles that are there. He doesn't even need to invoke tan because he's probably just going to invoke the inverse of tan at the end to get to measure the distance that Mount Rhine are supposed to be above it, right? That's always the argument. So, but anyway, let him continue. The ratios of similar triangles would have been enough. And as we know, Dale, things only scale properly on a plane, right?
Yeah.
They don't scale very well on a sphere.
Exactly.
So, a couple of things happen there. What you've got is Gav's wee spiel, which is just enough to... well, Dale doesn't have a clue what he's talking about for a start. He's like, yep. But he doesn't understand a word that just came out of Gav's mouth. And I'm willing to bet that the majority, if not all, of the people that are sitting watching his show never understood a word of it either. And that's the thing. What you've just seen is that the only real input you're going to get from Gav, because it's just enough to make it sound like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. I've done maths. But will he then use that skill? Will he continue to analyse the output here and show why it's wrong? No. The second part is the mockery that came at the end with regard to, as we know, it only works on a plane. Well, if either one of them were paying any fucking attention to what was going on here, this is the whole point of the demonstration that's being done here, exactly the same as what Miles did, which is to do the geometry of the relative sizes on a flat plane and see how everything would work out. Then you compare that to what's actually happening in the real world, and if it doesn't match, you can say, well, it doesn't match a flat plane, therefore it's not a flat plane. At no point in either Miles's observation or this thing that they're supposed to be critiquing was there ever an actual mention during these workings that it was supposed to be being performed over a curved surface.
Again,
Congruity.
Again, that's it.
That's that this angle here is about 1.09 degrees.
Yeah, get on with it, Kojak.
And I know the adjacent
Sorry, mate.
No, I'm just saying, get on with it, Kojak.
Yep.
Move.
is the distance to Mount Rainier. I can figure out the opposite, which would be this bit. Now that bit there represents the opposite of the triangle, which will be the tan of 1.09 degrees times that distance, which is the adjacent. And what that tells us is that that part in that red circle there should be, well, it should be this. It should be about 3,187 metres. This is the height that should have been obscured above eye level if the Earth was flat.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, aye, on your tangible side view.
Well, it means if you've been following along with a calculator, like
So, sterling input from Gav so far. A note that he may not have to perform the calculation in one way, but could maybe do it a slightly different way, and then ad homs and blah blah blah. Fucking amazing.
I know, literally, none of you will have been. We should, on a flat earth, of Mount Rainier above Mount St. Helens at those distances.
So this argument here incorporates the angular size.
Aye.
That'll do.
It's an argument, but it's sophistry, you baldy prick.
And there we go.
Okay, again, rumbled, you little dishonest.
So we're up to where we were, a few minutes ago. So that's it. That's how they dealt with the observation and the information that Katz was providing in his video. There was absolutely nothing done to debunk it. All it was two old men sitting slagging it off. They said nothing about the actual workings, they said nothing about the actual observation itself, they never did anything to prove that anything could be different from what is being stated. No, it's just baldy, pair of fucking clowns. But that's all they've got.
What they're trying to portray here is the wonderful fucking science, Then when you actually strip it back to its basics and you look at the geometry, which is as close as you can get mathematically to anything practical, right? And then it's a different world, right? Showing visibles and talking shite, or doing real world observations and trying to get to the bottom of things using geometric construction.
Well, you mean like you've just sat for an hour showing visuals and talking shite? Well, Miles went and did a real-world observation and did the actual calculations to work out how it applies to a flat plane. Well, what do you continue to do? This, sitting here, talking shite.
That is the difference between this platform and all these other wankers out there.
Yep, exactly.
Aye, everybody else does some actual work and uses their brain.
Exactly. You should always be willing to get up and verify and falsify things for yourself.
Do you believe this shit? The guy who won't get up and go and verify or falsify Miles's observation, but has just spent a hangout showing a bunch of ridiculous, pointless fucking tests that didn't prove anything apart from that he doesn't understand geometry, and he's willing to falsify information because he doesn't like the idea that somebody might have more a barrel with one single real world observation. Absolute fucking hypocrisy.
Further from the truth, right?
Exactly.
I've met you multiple times personally, right? And you're a well-mannered, amiable, nice, likeable big fellow, right? Yeah. And anybody that comes to this platform that doesn't come with sophistry or fallacious arguments intentionally will always be treated with respect. And,
complete horse shit. You just need to watch this guy's fucking hangouts, and every time somebody comes in and tries to have a decent conversation with him, all they get is verbal abuse.
Again, I can only say, I'll be here, or I hope I'll be here on the platform anytime, and if somebody wants to come and talk about any of these topics, then come reasonably, come sensibly, and come and have a reasonable discussion. But don't sit in wee chambers pointing fingers and trying to emotionally manipulate people, right?
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
Just
again, the proof's in the
talk
law.
About projecting.
We don't sit and try any of that shit. None of us here represents any of that. It's these people.
Yeah, I mean, they sit and snigger like little girls. Nothing against girls here, by the way, but it just looks like wee bitchy circles of laughing at people. There's nothing behind that, right? That just shows the emptiness of their arguments.
Is there anything here that isn't blatant fucking hypocrisy? They've just spent like the better part of an hour doing exactly that. Unbelievable.
Right?
Right. I either can't find the right bit or it's part of another video. And do you know what? I can't be sitting through any more of this. So the point was that Gav has written a document about optics, and Dell has shared it. And this is the whole point with this deceptive little shit. He will sit and manipulate people with language. He will throw some information out there that makes him sound a wee bit smarter, and he gets away with it because he's doing it in front of an audience that just don't get really what he's saying. But, you know, he's been told before that all that shit only works on a certain type of person. People can see right through what he does, which is why he stays in his echo chamber. He's produced nothing in the space of a couple of years, but the document that I'm talking about, that's the one thing he's done. Here's a guy, again, who sits and goes on and on and on about fucking tangibles and real world direct realism, blah blah, and the only thing he's got to show for a couple of years in this flat earth, apart from adding to Dell's script and sitting laughing like a fucking child in an echo chamber every week, is producing a written document, which all the information, of course, he had to go and find from another source, because he never performed any direct experimentation to get any of the information that's in that document. It's all about optics, as we'll see in a minute. Did he go and study the human eye? Of course he didn't. He went and read some other real scientist's work, and then cherry-picked a bunch of information that he needed to throw together, worded it in his own way to try and make it seem overly verbose and make him sound a wee bit more intelligent on the subject than he really is. Threw together a PDF document and threw some geometric diagrams in it. So basically, computer drawings. This is the direct realist. This is what he's got to offer. Where's his real world practical examples of anything? He's a fucking clown.